What's happening, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of An American in Poland. I'm Kenny. Glad to have you here. Boy, have we got some crazy stuff going on in Poland, in Europe in general, Germany, France, Belgium, Netherlands. It's all happening here. So this topic is very near and dear to my heart. If you've watched my channel in the past, you know that I'm from the mountains in the northeast of the United States, the state of Vermont to be exact. This issue is so close to my heart because of the fact that I grew up in the agricultural industry. Friends, family, all the people I was surrounded with in my life growing up were farmers. I went to the cattle auctions or the livestock auctions every Monday with my grandfather. We milked all of our cows by hand. Cousins, family raised beef and sold hay, and next door neighbors were dairy farmers. And so this really has a soft spot for me here in my heart. So why are farmers here in Poland protesting? Well, they're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place right now. One of the biggest things that is affecting farmers in general is increased operating costs. We all complain when we go to the grocery store and we see things going up in cost, and we don't think about the fact that, well, everything's going up in cost for local producers. And you think of the diesel costs of the last couple of years. That has a direct reflection on how much it costs to produce silly things like grain and milk and corn and vegetables and everything. All of that is a direct cost. So that's been a big issue for the farmers in the last couple of years due to the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Now, that leads to our next issue, the farmers complaining about cheap imports. So one of the biggest issues facing European farmers in general, but directly Polish farmers, is trying to compete with the low-cost grains that are coming across the border from Ukraine.
Nie zgadzam się na przykład z niskimi cenami aktualnymi zbóż. Dla przykładu, przez to, że jest bardzo duży import zbóż z Ukrainy, gdzie mają tańsze warunki produkcji, lepsze gleby mają i nie ma takich różnych obostrzeń, jakie nas tutaj Unia nas zobowiązuje do realizacji.
Now, I can see the goodness in this as well, where this came from and why it happened. The Polish people, as well as the rest of the European people, saw this issue in this conflict in Ukraine and said, we're going to support them. We're going to do whatever we can. But the problem is it was a short-term fix to a long-term problem. And so the issue that we're having is, we've allowed unfettered access to the European market and the Polish market specifically. And we're allowing all of these products to come in from Ukraine, and they're able to produce it cheaper. The soil is better. They don't have the restrictive regulations like the rest of the EU, and this is causing some real problems. Now, it isn't just Ukraine though. When you go to Biedronka, you go to Lidl, any of your grocery stores, it's the same thing that we have in the U.S. You're seeing strawberries from Mexico, or potatoes from, say, the United States, exporting potatoes to Poland, or even everyday products such as flour is coming from outside of the European Union and is being produced at a much cheaper price. Salt. Now, this is one thing that drives me crazy. You're seeing Himalayan salt being sold in Poland, which is the salt capital of Europe. You would think that every salt product that was produced here in Poland, or that was sold here in Poland, would come from Poland. But the farmers are facing these same problems. Now, I want to talk about almost a direct correlation of what happened where I grew up and what I can see coming on the horizon here in Poland. So in New England, we had this thing called the New England Dairy Compact. And what this did is it protected the small New England dairies by kind of like setting a price for the milk that was produced in New England, and not allowing cheap imports to come from the Midwest, where they were able to produce milk on a larger scale because they had a lot more open land. They were able to have larger farms and produce milk at a much, much cheaper price. I mean, we're talking pennies on the dollar. Unfortunately, we call it big milk. They ended up lobbying New England politicians and allowed the New England Dairy Compact to lapse. Now, I know a lot of Europeans think Bernie Sanders is the most wonderful person in the world, but he's a Vermont senator. And guess what? He was one of the ones that was actually against the New England Dairy Compact. Now, a direct result of losing the New England Dairy Compact was farms closing. And we're not talking just a few farms. So to give you an idea, in 1945, there was 11,000 farms, over 11,000 farms just in the state of Vermont. In 2016, now this is 15 years after the New England Dairy Compacts had lapsed, there was 800 farms. 11,000 to 800. Growing up, you had almost everybody had a farmer as a neighbor. Everyone knew where their food came from. And I think there's a lot of value in that. Part of the problem that I think we have nowadays is this rural and urban divide. And the folks in the city think that the folks that are out in the country are just dumb hicks, and the folks that are out in the country think that the folks in the city are, urban, overeducated urban socialists, and they're unable to recognize, their importance to each other. Also ends up going into politics. And I mean, you look at the divide between PIS and PO in this country. We have some folks that we know here that have said, oh, well, after the farmers all elected the PIS government, we'll never buy another Polish product. Well, that's like cutting off your nose to spite your face. One of the things I thought was really special when moving here to Poland was the fact that they still had the village farms. It was like me going back to my childhood, or in the village, everybody knows the farmers. There might be 2 or 3 small farms operating in the village. And the more that people move outside of the village and move back, into these large urban centers, the greater the divide, because you're not thinking about your neighbor. It's somebody over there. You're not thinking about, where your food comes from, because it comes from Biedronka. Whereas like here in my small village of Vogovo, when you go to the village store here, the potatoes were grown right across the street. The eggs came from the other farmer across the street. We still have direct contact with that, and we understand where some of our food comes from, which I think is fantastic. What's going on in the rest of Europe is also affecting us here as well. In Germany, they've lost subsidies. They've lost fuel subsidies. They've lost, low interest loan subsidies for buying equipment, a lot of protections. We've lost those here in Poland. So Germany's protesting like crazy.
On Sunday evening, thousands of farmers started arriving in urban areas, including Berlin, Baden-Württemberg, North Rhine-Westphalia, Saxony and Bavaria. And by Monday, there were over 500 tractors lined up outside the Brandenburg Gate.
France is facing the same exact new regulations from this, new green initiative that's going through, this net zero initiative that's going through Europe. So, I mean, you've got farmers literally spraying down agricultural co-ops. You know, one thing I can say is Europe is fantastic at protesting. And one statement that really bothered me recently was that it was from an urban socialite, and they said, well, you know, they had a year that this has already been enacted. They should have protested a year ago. And why is it that they're only protesting now? And it's like, well, no, they did protest a year ago. Then they had to go back to work feeding Europe. So during the summer and the spring, the fall, the summer and the fall, they were busy feeding you. Then winter comes along, they have time to gather their thoughts and see just how the politicians, regardless of party, left or right, nobody is truly standing up for the farmers. That's why it's our job here to support our farmers, show them solidarity, and don't get caught up in the political parties of this, because that's what it's not about. What it's about is you're going to lose your neighborhood farms. You're going to lose your big farms, because guess what? Places like Nicaragua, Argentina, Ukraine, for example, they don't care about your environmental regulations. They are in a position where they want to produce as much product and make as much profit as they possibly can in order to break into a market and crush it. And the thing is at first it may seem like cheap products, you know, you're saving a little money in your pocket, but eventually those products, when they've taken over the market, the price starts going up as well. And this is exactly what happened in Vermont with the dairy industry. At first, when the dairy compact dropped, milk prices went right through the basement at the store, as well as for the farmers. So the farmers trying to produce milk for a quarter of the cost, or for 1/4 of the profit that they were before. And everyone's like, oh, this is great. You can buy milk for a quarter of the price. The problem being is now they're paying the same price that they were before, except for they don't have control of where their product is coming from. They're no longer supporting their neighbor. It's really easy for people who are sitting behind a desk to say, oh, well, just find a different job. When you have generations of people that have grown up on these farms, this is their livelihood. They look at these animals as their families. You know, when I was a kid, it was very common for a farm to be able to operate and raise a family with as little as 25 milking cows. There was a personal relationship with every single one of those cows. You knew them by name. The kids had named them. They had, fed them from the time they were calves. Now, you have to have 3,000 cows to be able to raise a family, where they're all just given an electronic tag. Sometimes they're milked by robots. It's become very impersonal. The same people that complain about industrial agriculture are enacting policies that have crushed the family farmer. So, that being said, what can we do? I can do nothing. Unfortunately, I can support my local farmer by going shopping, and that's what all of us can do, but I can't vote here. I have no say. But what I can say is, vote in your best interest, not your party's best interest. Look at your neighbor, look at where your food comes from, and think about who you want to support. Do you want to support somebody from outside of the country that doesn't know you and only looks at you as profit? Or do you want to support your next door neighbor who's raising wheat, who's raising sugar beets, who's providing you with meat, who's providing you with eggs and dairy? It's a simple question for me. It's a simple answer. You know, I know that we all have budgets. Trust me, I know. You know, Anya and I live very frugally. You know, we save our money where we can. But there are certain things where I say absolutely not. I only buy Polish butter. I only buy Polish salt. I only buy Polish grains. Because for me, that's how I can be part of the solution to this problem. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope it gives you something to think about, a perspective from outside, who's already lived through the destruction of his agricultural community. If you've enjoyed this video, please do me a favor. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, and make sure you got notifications turned on. We're making new content all the time. Once again, I really appreciate you taking the time to get all the way through this video. It helps the channel grow. Na razie, dziękuję bardzo, and we will see you soon right here on An American in Poland.